Hi everybody, it's Mallory Smythe with Endow. Have you ever been treated better than you expected to be treated? Maybe there was a status difference between you and someone and they treated you with incredible kindness and attention, or maybe you had treated somebody poorly and they came back to you with only a listening ear and just a kind demeanor. And this has happened to me before, where I've expected somebody to treat me one way, and then on a positive note, they treated me better. And I was surprised, but then also I had a higher self-confidence for that time. I looked at myself differently, and I decided that I would treat others differently as a result. As I've been reading through our study on St. John Paul II's letter to women, I've come to the point where St. John Paul is talking about the way Jesus treated women in the Gospels. And this is what he has to say. When it comes to setting women free from every kind of exploitation and domination, the gospel contains an ever-relevant message which goes back to the attitude of Jesus Christ himself. Transcending the established norms of his own culture, Jesus treated women with openness, respect, acceptance, and tenderness. In this way, he honored the dignity which women have always possessed according to God's plan and in his love. As we look to Christ at the end of the second millennium, it is natural to ask ourselves how much of his message has been heard and acted upon. Jesus treated women in a way that was offensive to society at the time. He brought them into the kingdom of God, right? He brought them into his teachings. He brought them into his close circle of friends. And this was not accepted at the time. Women would have been surprised at this. At first, they would not have known what to do with it. And yet, there would have been this longing and this need and this desire in their hearts that would have been met. And they would have responded by seeing themselves the way that God sees them. As I've been reading through this, I've been thinking about the Jesus that I've been reading through in the daily readings. See, I know what I see is that we tend to kind of fashion Jesus into what we want him to be to promote our own idea of what's right. So if we're rule followers, we make Jesus into a rule follower. If we're rule breakers, we make Jesus into a rule breaker. If our politics are more liberal, then Jesus is kind of this hippie loving, I love everybody kind of guy. And if our politics are more conservative, Jesus is an American flag carrying Republican. And yet, Jesus doesn't fully fit into any of these boxes. He wasn't super political. He was deeply religious. He also broke the rules of his religion all the time for the sake of the righteousness of the kingdom of God. Jesus is the image of the invisible God, which means he is interested in bringing humanity back to God in whichever way he can do that. Whether it's through challenging the people of his time or bestowing mercy on the sinner or challenging people to personal holiness. And so on some levels, he's offensive to our senses. And so we have to, or at least I have to try to make him more comfortable, whenever really he's trying to make me less comfortable and more holy. And we see this challenge in the way especially that he treated women. And so in my own life, I have to ask myself, how much of his message have I heard and acted upon? How much of myself am I willing to transform to conform to his will? Or how much am I trying to conform him to mine? And so that's what I'm praying through this week, and I challenge you to do the same. How much of his message, his true message, have you heard and acted upon? Are you conforming yourself to him? Or are you trying to conform him to you? If you want to learn more about who Jesus is, about the kingdom of God, and what we have been left in the Catholic Church, you can dive into an Endow study at www.endowgroups.org, or you can connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Endow Groups. Have a great week.